down to 8 teams remaining in the quest for the Lombardi Trophy. This is the divisional weekend for the NFL, and this is the divisional weekend preview for the Huddle, presented by OddsChecker. I'm Pat Mayo, joined, as always, by Ross Tucker, Pam Maldonado, and Brian Matthews to break down each of the games in order. No memento style here. We're going to go in order that the games are actually happening, and we're going to start with the Jags at the Chiefs. And before we get into this, we need to talk about Chargers-Jags for just 1 second. Trevor Lawrence goes from looking like Zach Wilson in the first half to vintage Tom Brady in the second half. Not the Tom Brady of Monday night, like vintage Super Bowl winning Tom Brady of a year and a half ago, that kind of thing. But not on Monday Night Football, put it that way. So, Ross, I got to ask you, how does Brandon Staley keep his job outside of the owners just being too cheap?
I think that might be it right there. I don't know that there is a great answer for this. Otherwise, they would probably have done it. They're not going to do it, with them firing the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, and the quarterback coach, Shane Day. That's basically the same as saying we're not firing the head coach, which to me is always so funny, right? Like, it's like they don't want to fire the head coach, but they realize they need to do something. So I would always like to be in these meetings where they decide who the sacrificial lambs are, right? And I'm not saying Joe Lombardi deserved to keep his job or whatever. We can have that discussion. But does anybody think that that's really why they're doing this? They're doing this because they know they have to do something, and they don't want to be Staley. So they said to Staley, you got to do something, and he picked Joe Lombardi and the quarterback coach, Shane Day. It's a shame, and I have a real issue with Brandon Staley, and I'll tell you why. I'm okay if he wants to have some logic or reasoning behind playing the guys against the Broncos in Week 18. We can even have the argument about, hey, they lost to the Jaguars. It wasn't all his fault. Lawrence played really great. That's fine. I don't like when guys aren't prepared. He plays the starters against the Broncos, and then after the game, he's asked about it, and he said, well, we only have 48 guys to dress, so we can't really play the backups. Not logical. Doesn't make sense. The coach of the year, Brian Daboll, sat like the Giants' best 8 players against the Eagles in Week 18. So if you're going to do something stupid, like have the starters playing a meaningless game, at least come up with something plausible. I'm really into something plausible that we can at least, believe you. Especially when later in the week, Mike Williams isn't practicing and you say, not worried about it. Rest is more important than reps at this point. Wait, what? What did you just say? Rest is more important than reps? We know what you did on Sunday, Brandon. We know what just happened 4 days ago. We were all watching. What are you talking about? So anyway, to me, he should have been fired for everything that happened with the Denver game, and his comments in light of it, it just shows me he doesn't get it. Now you have one of the biggest collapses ever. They're not going to do it. They had some players come out and speak in favor of him. Maybe they like him. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they like him too much. I got to tell you right now, if I was a veteran Chargers player, I would have a trust issue here because his decision in Week 18 hurt their ability to make a playoff run. His poor choice to play guys. I'm just telling you right now, I don't even know how long the show is. I've been talking for 25 minutes, but whatever. Okay? Here's the point, okay? He already didn't let those guys have rest, all right? They didn't get the rest that they would want. Any player would tell you late in the year, you don't need to make me a little bit taller, a little faster, my arms longer. Just let me feel a little bit better. Let me feel as good as possible. He didn't let them have that because he played them against the Broncos, and they lost the game, and you got your best receiver hurt. It's a disaster. It really, really is, and it burns me up, and I don't care what some of those guys say publicly. Privately, I'm sure some of those guys lost their trust and faith in their head coach.
Shots fired, Brandon Staley.
There we go.
That's not great. I just think it comes down to them being too cheap. Brian, how can you run and own an NFL franchise And if you know you have to get rid of this guy and you want to get rid of this guy, and the reason that you're not doing it is over $4 million, that doesn't affect you on the cap whatsoever. How do you even own an NFL franchise?
It's pretty shocking because you look at it and Brandon Staley's not, he's the one that makes the decisions as to, who's playing, who's not. And, Ross mentioned it, their best receivers out. But not only that, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are already injury prone. I mean, those two haven't played a full season in forever. So when you roll them out against the Broncos and then make an about face on your statements, it looks terrible. I guess it's that they don't want to make a shakeup. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's pretty clear a change needs to be made. It's just Lombardi's gone, quarterback's coach is gone. So that's going to be their resolution and change. And they're going to, give it another plug with Staley, I guess.
You guys are looking at this entirely wrong. Somebody's trash is another person's treasure. So let me just hear it one time. Duval! I'm so happy that Staley is as bad as he is because it allowed my Jags to come back from a 27-point deficit for the win.
You called that one, right?
I wasn't entirely wrong. I had the Chargers and they had them until they didn't. But you know what? That was my reverse jinx plan all along.
Ross, I have to ask you, is this just conspiracy Pat coming out for a second here? I always enjoy to go into these with you and then you tell me I'm an idiot for them. But if the Chargers are doing this as like a financial thing, let's say, and it's not necessarily that they don't want to eat the $4 million. Is it that they don't want to give up the draft capital and then have to pay Sean Payton to come in?
I think they don't want to give Sean Payton the money, the draft picks, and the power and authority that he wants. So the owner sits up there with the GM. The GM doesn't want Sean Payton to come in because Sean Payton's not going anywhere unless he has significant say in personnel. So Tom Telesco, the GM, is like, yeah, I don't know about Sean Payton. He's pretty good, but I don't know about this. The owner is thinking Sean Payton wants $10 to $15 million, 3 times as much as Brandon Staley makes. And you know what? Maybe if we just get a better young coordinator, we can get the same thing we would get out of Sean Payton, right? We can get Justin Herbert in the offense to play at a really high level, which is why we would bring in Sean Payton. And also, Staley's record hasn't been that bad. They kind of like him. He said a lot of things in 2021 that people agreed with in terms of being aggressive. They almost went to the playoffs last year. They did go to the playoffs this year. They'd like to see it work out with him. They'd like to make it work. So it's all those things, I think. And the GM also, and the owner doesn't want to give up a first-round pick for Sean Payton. So there's a lot. All of that is all the reasons why he's not going to the Chargers.
Well, let's get into the game this week. Jags at Chiefs. The line keeps vacillating between 8.5 and 9 in favor of the Chiefs. These teams met back on November 13th. Chiefs the score was closer than the game actually was. It was 27-17 for the Chiefs, and Mahomes threw 331 yards, had 4 touchdowns. The Chiefs just absolutely took it to them in this game. Now, can anyone envision a scenario here? Pam, let's start with you, where Trevor Lawrence walks into Arrowhead and pulls a Joe Burrow from last year.
I cannot look at my Jacksonville team objectively. So the answer is yes. Absolutely. Realistically, let's be real here. It's Patrick Mahomes. And this is the best quarterback that we've seen in our generation. So I would love the Jaguars to be competitive. I think that they can keep this within the number of 8. I'm more interested, once you get to this point in the season, where there's only 4 or 5 games on deck, I need to look at something other than a spread, other than a total. I'm trying to find angles that nobody else is looking at. So for me, I want to look at the third quarter over because we know if you've been following the Jags, clearly they're a second half team. They're the 7th best in the league for second half scoring, specifically in the third quarter. They are the 3rd best in the league behind only the Bills and the Patriots. Well, guess who's the 4th best team in the league for third quarter scoring? That is the Chiefs. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring third quarter right out of the gate. Come out fresh. We saw Trevor Lawrence. He looked terrible, like you said, Zach Wilson-esque in the first half. Maybe that was a little bit of jitters going on. He'll come out looking fresh in the second half. They'll have a game plan to be competitive, get back into this. So I would be looking to the third quarter over. I'm not really interested in fading my Jags, and I don't really want to back them because my heart might get broken.
Brian, Andy Reid, 27-4 coming off a bye week is a straight up win-loss. That's not against the spread. That's just to win the game outright. So it's going to be pretty tough for Trevi Lawrence to keep this undefeated Saturday streak going.
Yeah, I look at the first game too. The Chiefs took it to them, and they were -3 in the turnover differential. Still won by double digits there. So I look at that game. The Chiefs could have put it on them a lot more. It's a lot of points, as we saw with the first, Super Wild Card weekend. When you take a lot of points in the playoff games, it can get, it can get a little dicey. But look, I don't think the Chiefs are going to lose this game in Kansas City. I thought Jacksonville did a great job coming back, but we've seen, these teams are going to play close. I just think that Kansas City's kind of an unstoppable force right now, at least going up against Jacksonville in that matchup.
Ross?
Well, so a couple things. Number one, if you look at it over time, when a team has like an epic comeback like the Jags had, it usually doesn't bode that well for the next week. Just a word to the wise on that. Secondly, I'm not going to lay that many points with the Chiefs. This is actually the only game this week where I don't have a bet straight up against the spread. I do have a bet for this game, though. Make sure you listen or watch the end of the show, because I do have a bet involved in this game. I would lean Jacksonville getting the points. They played really well. They believe. They got a great coach in Doug Peterson. I think they can hang. I think they can either hang and lose by a touchdown or get a late backdoor cover. So it's not a play for me, but I would lean to the Jags getting those points. I just don't like laying that many points against a pretty good team on a roll like the Jaguars. I mean, they just won a game in which they were -5 in the turnover margin. I didn't even know that was possible. And they won a game -5. So if they're even with the Chiefs, I think they have a chance to stay in this one.
Let's move to Saturday evening, where we have the NFC East showdown. Giants coming off the big upset-ish win over the Minnesota Vikings, taking on, fresh off a bye, Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles, Pam's team, looking to cruise to the Super Bowl with that number 1 seed. The Eagles are already 2-0 against the Giants so far this season. But Brian, in week 18, we kind of had a little bit of a conversation about this, that, the Eagles jumped up to this big lead. The Giants came back, covered the spread. It wasn't exactly reminiscent of what we saw with Giants-Patriots in the final week of the season, the undefeated Patriots here, but they kept that game close. Then all of a sudden, they meet up again in the playoffs, and boom, the Giants ended up winning that game. Now, this Giants team constructed slightly differently with very little defense and seemingly all offense. Daniel Jones is coming off essentially the best game of his career. And the best 2 games of his season have come against the Minnesota Vikings, as it turns out, who don't play defense. I'm pretty sure the defensive coordinator stands there with his clipboard. We never see what's on the other side of the clipboard. I think it just says defense on it. And that's just what he calls play defense. See if that works, because that seems to be about as much strategy as the Vikings defense had for the final 10 weeks of the season. And eventually it stopped working out. So how do you see this game breaking down? Do you think that the Eagles could be undervalued here because people are just riding the Giants?
Look, I actually like the Giants' points in this. I don't think that the Giants win this game. But look, you're playing a team 3 times in the same season. We saw that with San Francisco and Seattle. These games can be close, right? And so when you're familiar with them, I just don't look too much into these Minnesota games because, number one, they give up the most most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks, most receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. So Daniel Jones is surely going to have a big day against, like you said, a clipboard-holding defensive coordinator. But this week they've got the Eagles, and I know we keep saying, okay, they're the Eagles. They're not, are they doing enough to impress us? I'm asking about the win, though. I like the Eagles to win, but I do actually like the Giants on the points here. I think when you play a conference foe 3 times and Daboll's got that team believing and motivated, I think they'll keep it close.
Pam, you've been the biggest Eagles hater all season long, so I'm guessing you're taking the Giants?
I'm going to continue to hate. Give me the Giants and the points. Are they going to win? I'm not going to take the money line, but I do like the +7, especially if there's a hook. The Giants offense, I know that Daniel Jones looks stellar against the Vikings. Say all you want, but the offense still has found its groove. Daniel Jones is actually leads in, he's second in the playoff teams remaining. He is second in completion percentage behind only Joe Burrow and has only 1 interception in his last 7 games. That matters to me because now you're playing against an Eagles defense, though it has been susceptible as of late. They are first in total defense, this Philadelphia team, but in the last 3, call it injuries, call it what you want, the Eagles dropped from first in opponent yards per play to 16th. They allowed 420 yards of offense to the Cowboys. Andy Dalton to throw 82% completion, and in week 18 forced 0 interceptions and 0 sacks to a backup quarterback for the Giants, playing in his first start of the season. So injuries definitely come into play with this. It is my concern, and it was the reason why I faded the Eagles in week 18, because Brian Daboll is such a great coach that he's going to find the leaks and the holes on the Philadelphia defense and attack that way. And I trust Daniel Jones right now. He is playing smart, great football. I will take the Giants.
Ross, you have been the anti-Pam in this situation, being on the Eagles all season long. We talked about it the first 4 weeks of the season. This team is going to the Super Bowl. They're going to win the NFC East. They haven't gone to the Super Bowl yet, but they did win the division, locked up the 1 seed, coming off a bye. It looks like they get Lane Johnson back. However, they kind of limped into the playoffs a little bit. Maybe, I don't want to say by design, but they just didn't have the fire towards the end. And the Giants, they have captured that ever elusive momentum in the playoffs right now. I see this game as people are undervaluing the Eagles. I'm guessing you feel the same way.
Well, I will say I kind of like the way the Giants are playing right now and the belief they have. And I would never lay 7.5. I cringe whenever it's like laying a 7.5 or a 3.5. I almost always take the other side. So I like the Giants to keep it close. I like the Giants getting the 7.5 points here. But I do think, to your point, Pat, we've lost sight a little bit of who this Eagles team is. When Hurts got hurt, they lost 2 starts with Gardner Minshew, put up a bunch of points against the Cowboys, but lost, and they lost to the Saints. Then Hurts came back maybe before he really wanted to, and they beat the Giants, who didn't play all their starters. But let's not forget, I think they were, 13-1 with Jalen Hurts as a starter. He played unbelievable the entire year. They have the most talented team. They have the best roster. All of those things are still true. I don't know that they'll have Avonte Maddox at nickel corner, but they'll have a bunch of guys back for this game, including Lane Johnson. I think ultimately they take care of business. Although this is one of those games, too, I'll say, where when a team comes off a bye like this, they can either come out like a little rusty and sluggish, or they just come out roaring, firing on all cylinders. And I think we'll get a pretty good indicator of that really early in the first quarter. I like the Giants getting the 7.5. Again, I think they either keep it close or Daniel Jones able to get us a backdoor cover late.
Let's jump to the Sunday games, starting off with the early one. Not too early, though. That's a nice thing about the divisional round. You don't have to get up too early, especially on the West Coast, to watch these one. All acceptable times for all the games, regardless of time zones. Great job, schedule makers, for figuring this one out so far in the 2023 season, at least. Bengals at Bills. The Bills you can find at -4, -4.5, -5. I assume if you like the Bills, you probably want to bet the -4. You like the Bengals, you probably want to bet the +5. If the game ends on 4.5, whoo, you got a middle on the go. Probably not likely, though. So we know what happened between these two teams on Monday Night Football a few weeks back, but let's try to keep this on the field. Ross, you nailed it last week with the corpse of the Miami Dolphins covering and keeping it pretty close against the Buffalo Bills. And then on the other side of the ball, it was a rock fight, an AFC North rock fight between the Ravens and the Bengals. And then just one play turns the entire game. The Bengals are moving on. So my question to all of you, and Pam, we'll start with you on this. Based on how the teams looked on the weekend, who are you more concerned about in this game?
The Bills. The Bills have been, to me, pretty lackluster all season long. I think that Josh Allen has kind of reverted back to some of his old Wyoming habits. I really like the Bengals here in this spot. I want to take the Bengals on the money line, +200. Not only just because of this game, but because I also have an exact futures on who's going to be in the Super Bowl. And for me, I had already chosen the Bengals and the Niners. So I want to back Joe Burrow all day because the Bills defense, 31 points to Miami. Skylar Thompson. I'm very familiar with Skylar Thompson, and I was pretty underwhelmed coming into this game. I was not expecting anything. Ross clearly nailed it, but 31 points to Miami offense. More importantly, they allowed 4 separate wide receivers, receptions of 19 plus yards. Now, if you look at the quarterbacks that the Bills have faced, Skylar Thompson, Mac Jones twice, an injured Justin Fields, and a concussed Tua Tagovailoa. This is Joe Burrow. They call him Joe Cool for a reason. I love the Bengals in this spot. I want them to upset, and I think they will.
I know it was close on the weekend, but I wouldn't lay all the blame on the Buffalo defense. Like the Miami's defense scored in that game. They generated all the turnovers. We only saw 42 rushing yards from the Miami offense, 220 passing yards. So I wouldn't say the Bills were like Civ-like on defense. It was just Josh Allen making all of these poor decisions. So Ross, who do you trust more in this game? Is it Josh Allen and is it Joe Burrow? And is it in the best interest of Josh Allen not to complete a 60-yard bomb in the first 5 minutes of the game and then think he can do it every single play?
Well, I was at the game on Sunday against the Dolphins, and I'll be there again this Sunday. And Josh Allen it's like a roller coaster, man. I mean, he makes some of the most incredible, breathtaking plays you'll ever see. And then he makes some where it's just hard to imagine that he's this far along in his career and he's still doing some of the head scratchers with how careless he is with the football in the pocket, when he runs with it. A lot of fumbles. I mean, Dolphins got him to fumble the ball a lot this year. He leads the NFL in interceptions in the red zone. I would say that those are not predictive statistics, though, in the sense that you don't know that that's going to happen against the Bengals. I guess how I would describe it is I feel like they need to win 3 more games to win the Super Bowl. I'd be surprised if it didn't happen in one of those, right? One of those games where Allen is going to have multiple turnovers, and that's probably the game the Bills end up losing. Not so sure that happens against the Bengals, although their defense is very good. I probably trust Joe Burrow more in this spot, but I think I trust the Bills team more in this spot because it's in Buffalo, because of their defense. And listen, the Bengals O-line is in a bad spot right now. I mean, that's not good. They're down 3 starters. They don't really have great depth. Now these guys have to go on the road and work in a silent count. Probably not the best situation for the Bengals going into this stadium. I think the Bills win the game, but I do like the Bengals getting the points. I mean, last time I looked, Bengals are getting 5 points. I like it. I'll take the Bengals. Feels like a 24-20, 23-20 type of victory for the Bills. Wouldn't be shocked at all if the Bengals win. So give me Cincinnati in the points.
Yeah, I like Cincinnati in the points too. Jonah Williams was a big loss. Jackson Carman came in, doesn't have a lot of experience there at that left tackle spot. So, look, I think that Cincinnati can definitely win this game, but I do trust Buffalo as a team more. I think that they win this game, but +5 is a number that I like, and I feel pretty comfortable at seeing Burrow play.
Well, let's go to the late game. Dallas coming off that thrilling win on Monday night, where I guess making extra points is super tough nowadays. I don't know if there was like a wind machine, like how the Falcons used to pump in the sound into the games. Maybe there was a wind machine in Tampa Bay. I don't know how that works out, but they're at the San Francisco 49ers. Shorter spread than I think a lot of people would have expected in this game. It's Niners by 3.5. And yeah, they looked fantastic on Monday night, but the Niners get 2 extra days of rest really on them playing the Saturday game. And they just kind of took it to the Seahawks in the second half of that game. So the first time in 4 years, the Cowboys did win a playoff game. That's great. I don't think anyone's going to really care if they go and get blown out in San Francisco by what's starting to look like, I don't want to say the team of destiny, but they are basically the 2000 Patriots on steroids. I don't know if they're really on steroids, but it's the same sort of template on offense with way better playmakers and an amazing defense. You just have this quarterback who throw it to the open guy, don't turn it over, and we are going to be rolling through this. I think the underrated part, and Kyle Shanahan gets absolutely no credit for this whatsoever. The only time Kyle Shanahan ever gets brought up in these discussions is when he makes some sort of moronic decision trying to ice a game out and just bad things. No one ever talks about how good Kyle Shanahan is. Maybe that's not that thrilling to talk about, but this rushing attack since getting Christian McCaffrey and using a 3-headed monster or just him has been electric. They're averaging somewhere around like 150 rushing yards per game. That's really helping out your last pick of the draft rookie quarterback in this circumstance. So it's a lot of words to say. The consensus line around 3.5, 4 right now for the Niners at home. Brian, where are you leaning in this game? Because I love San Francisco.
Yeah, so look, 3.5, I know would scare a lot of people with the hook over 3, but I actually like San Francisco in this game a lot. I look at, Purdy, and I get a lot of people saying, yeah, he doesn't do these amazing things. He doesn't need to. Shanahan does a great job of scheming up plays for him, minimizing mistakes, and he's got the playmakers all around. You forget Ayuk's even out there half the time, and he's one of the most explosive receivers because of Debo, McCaffrey, and then getting Eli Mitchell back is huge. Haven't mentioned George Kittle. and that defense. So I think Dallas played a pretty bad Tampa team that we kind of figured was that way. And I think this weekend I like them to roll for at least, I like the -3.5.
How about you, Pam?
Well, Pat, you said that nobody would mind if the Dallas Cowboys got blown off. Yeah. Try saying that to my family and the entire state of Texas. So do not be confused. I have to tell my dad, warning, warning, this is not a good matchup. Do not be confused, Dad, that the Cowboys are back. They are not. They played old man Brady, who has been a stinker all season long. Tampa Bay Bucks are 24th in yards per play. San Francisco is 3rd. And you talked about Brock Purdy. He is an absolute gamer. I love watching him. Not just as a Big 12 girl, but 49ers at home, they're so stellar. They're elite. They have scored no less than 33 points at home, averaging 37 points per game. Everyone is getting reps. You have Christian McCaffrey, who is going off. He is fully healthy, and because of that, he's been so dangerous on the ground. 4 100-yard rushing games. They're letting McCaffrey do his thing, and in turn, Deebo Samuel is back to his receiving ways. And the defense is the best in the league. Yes, to me, even ahead of the Eagles. I just expect interceptions have been a problem for Dak Prescott, and I expect them to be a problem here in this game because Dak Prescott, for the first time in like 8 games, threw 0 interceptions against the Bucs. Well, he has 15 on the season. San Francisco defense is 2nd in takeaways. So they are 3rd best in 14 interceptions. I am telling my dad way ahead of time, please close your eyes and do not be shocked when you see Dak Prescott have a horrible game against this San Francisco defense. I love the Niners.
Ross, why are Texas and really Cowboys fans such snowflakes?
Why do you say that?
Oh, just if the Dallas can't be awesome, it's gonna be too heartbreaking to take. I don't know if I can watch football anymore.
I will say that's one thing that is concerning to me about the Cowboys in this game. It's that they finally won a playoff game. So, and I think there were a lot of nerves because I think they all knew, I think Mike McCarthy probably would have gotten fired if the Cowboys lost to the Bucs on Monday night. So I don't want to say they're relaxing, but I just think they're proud of themselves. They actually won a playoff game. It doesn't happen very often for the Dallas Cowboys. And there were a lot of nerves that they might not win one, even after having such a good season. So I do think there's a chance that the Cowboys have a little bit of a letdown here. It is interesting that they're playing on 6 days rest, whereas the Niners get 8 days rest. That's a pretty significant difference, especially with the Cowboys having to travel. That said, I would almost never lay 3.5 points. Almost never. I despise that number. I like the Cowboys. I like what I saw Monday night. I think they believe. I think they're legitimately good. I think the Niners are a little bit overrated. I mean, they were losing at halftime to Geno Smith and the boys. I saw Jarrett Stidham light up that defense. I'm not sure that defense is as great as Pam or others have been saying it is. They feasted on a bunch of really bad quarterbacks, bad teams. We don't know. Maybe Dak comes out and has a bunch of turnovers and I'll be proven wrong. But I'll take the Cowboys in the 3.5. I think they have a decent chance to win. Even if they lose, I think they're right there. Maybe lose by a field goal. Love getting the 3 and a hook. Give me the Cowboys.
Pam, since you're now my Dallas Cowboys insider, I got to ask, if they go into San Francisco and lose by like 30 points, and it's just an utter embarrassment, we know that Mike McCarthy is not going to be fired because they actually won a playoff game. Would winning that playoff game turn out to be a huge disaster if this all happens?
Yeah. I will let you know that my dad despises Dak Prescott. He wants him gone. He is ready for somebody new. And he hasn't mentioned once anything about McCarthy. It has nothing to do with coaching. He puts, not just my dad, all of Texas puts the blame on Dak Prescott. So I would be really interested that if the Cowboys do get blown out of the water, what happens with Dak? Does he stick around? Is he going to be replaced? What's happening there? I mean, yeah, Mike McCarthy, he should be gone. We all know this. He's not the best coaching, but it's Kellen Moore who's been more of the play caller in this situation. So I'm more interested to see what happens at the quarterback position.
Well, Brian, I guess Cowboys fans could have a rude awakening. I don't know why you would run Dak out of town. So you could have Mike McCarthy and Zach Wilson, or you could have Dak and Sean Payton. I know which side I would take.
Yeah. Look, I'm keeping Dak. I don't assign the blame to Dak. Look, I look at the coaching. McCarthy you see him on the sidelines. He just looks in over his head on on a lot of the big situations, a lot of the decisions he makes, dating back. they're too talented of a team. I would definitely not run Dak out of town just based on a couple games from Cooper Rush and thinking he might be the next great thing. Dak's a solid quarterback who's been injured, looked to put it together. So, I don't know about running him out of town. I like Dak.
Yeah, Ross, what is it that people have against Dak? Is it just that he's not Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? He's not on that level, so apparently he sucks?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Dak Prescott is an excellent quarterback. He's a top 15 quarterback any year that he's playing. A lot of years he's been a top 10 quarterback. The expectations are outsized for the Cowboys for whatever reason. Yeah. I mean, he's already done more, it seems like, in these playoff games than Romo ever did. And I think that Dak has just had some unfortunate interceptions this year that have hurt him. And I think that that's been the negative for Dak. But at one point, I don't know, maybe Pam knows the number. At one point when Dak came back from injury, they were the highest scoring offense in the league. And I don't know that he has great weapons around him. It's not like these other guys that they have like the dream team around him. He's throwing to Dalton Schultz, okay. CeeDee Lamb's pretty good, but I don't think he's an elite receiver. He's getting stuff from Gallup and T.Y. Hilton. I think Dak's a really good quarterback, and I think people just give the quarterback too much blame and too much credit, and that's just the way pro football is.
So Dak Prescott has now won the same amount of playoff games as Tony Romo. I made sure to tell my father that he is now equal to that of Tony Romo, my dad's favorite player. And yes, the Cowboys offense has been superb. They lead in almost every statistical category since Dak Prescott has made his return. It's just those turnovers. And the problem for the Cowboys is they just don't have that deep threat wide receiver, yet they are still making plays as if they have 5 of them downfield. Stop with that, and they will be fine.
All right, we've made our individual picks for the games, but maybe we need to combine 2 of those together. So let's get to Ross Tucker and figure out who we are going with in Tuck's teasers.
Well, listen, with only 4 games, there's a pretty good chance usually that there are no teaser options. That is not the case. I have the teaser of the century. It's a Saturday spectacular. You take the Chiefs from -8.5, you tease them down 6 points to -2.5. Take the Eagles from -7.5, tease them down 6 points to -1.5. All you need is the Chiefs and the Eagles to win essentially by a field goal. Love, love, love this teaser. A little bit surprised that the lines are where they are, that you can even play this teaser. Make sure you get in on this with me because I love it. Chiefs, Eagles, Saturday spectacular, 2-team 6-point teaser.
And that will do it on the divisional round preview of the Huddle presented by OddsChecker. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Remember to share it around, smash a like while you're here as well. And I want to thank Pam, Brian, and Ross for joining us every single week. I'm Pat Mayo, and we will see you next week. But before I let you go, you know the vibes at this point. We're giving away another $500 this month. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're already halfway there. To enter, all you got to do is subscribe to our YouTube page at OddsChecker US to automatically enter. If you want to double your chances, comment on any video. Let's make this one while you're here anyway. Just might as well throw one down. There's a great show. Way to go, guys. Love it. Even if the picks lose, it's great. So go do that. And you earn a second entry. So again, subscribe to enter, comment on a video for another entry. We're making this look easier than scoring on TCU's defense, so not that hard. Don't miss out on a chance to start 2023 with an extra $500 in your pocket.